This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, after waiting 3 years for an MRI, this Halifax woman discovered she has a brain tumor.
Election recount. The Liberals request another count of the ballots in Yarmouth after leader Zach Churchill's loss.
And Christmas tree concerns, how climate change could hurt the balsam fir.
Onshore flurries and snow squalls for the northeast tonight and into Wednesday. Then watching a messy system tracking in with snow and rain for Thursday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening and welcome to our viewers in New Brunswick tonight. We begin in Nova Scotia, where more than 25,000 people are waiting for an MRI appointment.
For many, it is the first step in getting a crucial diagnosis. While some patients are able to get an MRI within months, others have been waiting for years. Juliana Gaudreau reports.
When Marina Atwell went to buy a new pair of glasses, her optometrist noticed something wrong with one of her eyes and suggested an MRI. After countless phone calls and eye clinic appointments, she finally got an MRI 3 years later. That's when she learned she had a brain tumor. She says it's frustrating that she had to advocate for herself as a patient.
It's all about the gatekeepers. Like, I know that they're stressed and they're overworked, so going in and being rude, that's just silly. It's not their fault. But I think she could sense that I was kind of exasperated by, it's been this long.
According to the Nova Scotia Health Authority, 50% of people waiting for an MRI are served within 80 days. But the president of the Canadian Association of Radiologists says no one should wait longer than 60 days.
If you have to wait, 6 months to a year to get an MRI, then by then you've either improved or there's going to be some negative consequences for you. So it's really unacceptable for people to have to wait that long.
And this is not a new issue. 7 years ago, Courtland Beauvoir had an intense pain in his legs that started to affect his school and work. After multiple visits to the walking clinic, he was told he needed an MRI before getting a diagnosis. After months in the waiting list, he went to the emergency room.
To wait 8 or 9 months in that level of pain and discomfort was it was torture. It was torture to wait that long for me, and I was just looking for anything at that point. So,
Juliana Gaudreau, CBC News, Halifax.
Louis Bedford, the Senior Director of Diagnostic and Therapeutic Services Network at NSHA, says one way the province is improving the MRI referral system is through electronic referrals, which were introduced in September of 2023. The new system aims to better match patients with appointments that fit their needs. With electronic referrals, patients who provide their email address receive notifications when the referral is sent and when an appointment is booked. Patients can also confirm their appointment via email. The province says the new system can help eliminate lost, incomplete, or duplicate referrals.
Halifax Council voted to keep a list of possible sites for future homeless encampments after the city's new mayor asked to scrap it. Mayor Andy Fillmore had campaigned on not opening new sites. Today, Council debated Fillmore's motion to get rid of the list. Some councillors say the move would be meaningless and premature because the current sites are still crowded. But Fillmore says there's enough room in the shelter system so more camps aren't needed.
The number of people sleeping rough in the winter declines. People do find other alternatives, and spring is coming. And while the winter carries on, the province is at an increasing rate bringing more and more options online. I believe that the worst of the housing crisis in HRM is behind us, and it's only going to get better.
The latest numbers had more than 100 people sleeping rough in Halifax. There are still more than 1,200 people on the list tracking people in need of housing.
Ballots from last week's provincial election will be recounted in 2 districts next week. Close results in Annapolis triggered an automatic recount, and the campaign for Liberal leader Zach Churchill have requested a recount following his loss in Yarmouth. Taryn Grant has the details.
Liberal leader Zach Churchill accepted his defeat after last week's election, but it was a close race in Yarmouth. The official count put Churchill behind Progressive Conservative Nick Hilton by just 14 votes. So Churchill's campaign has asked for ballots to be counted again.
As important as the results overall are, this may not change the results in the end. but we want those people that supported the campaign and those who donated to have confidence that the integrity of the electoral system is intact.
Salos says the request for a recount is based on two things: concern that the new electronic balloting system, which was used in early voting, had flaws, and that on election night there seemed to be some glitches with the reporting of numbers. At one point during the count, both Churchill and Hilton appeared to have 5,000 votes each, but in the end, each candidate finished with fewer than 4,000 votes. There will also be a recount for the electoral district of Annapolis. That recount was triggered automatically because PC candidate David Bowlby beat Liberal incumbent Carmen Kerr by fewer than 10 votes. Elections Nova Scotia will provide counting teams for each recount, and a judge in each electoral district will preside over the counting. The recounts are scheduled for Monday in Yarmouth and Tuesday in Annapolis, with results released the same days. But no matter the results in these ridings, the PCs will maintain their supermajority in the legislature. Taryn Grant, CBC News, Halifax.
Chilly start to the day today. Here's Ryan Snoddon with the latest on the weather forecast.
Yes, definitely needed to reach for that warmer coat.
Yeah, and you'll need it again tomorrow morning. It is going to be very, very chilly once again, even colder than it was for this Tuesday morning. And Wednesday, it's going to remain colder throughout the day as well as we look at those highs across the board. And you can see at and below the freezing mark for a good portion of Nova Scotia tomorrow, and certainly below freezing across New Brunswick. And you can see, some flurries in the mix across Nova Scotia, primarily in the morning, even down towards the Halifax area. The northeast, though, Pictou and Aganesh and into Cape Breton, we're looking at onshore flurries lingering even into the afternoon. There's the light accumulation possible in the west, but it's here in the northeast. Pictou and Aganesh into Inverness and Victoria County, onshore flurries and snow squalls developing overnight and continuing into Wednesday afternoon. The nature of snow squalls, you're driving along, it's sunny, then boom, you hit this wall of reduced visibility, accumulating snow, and it can really add up. And local amounts here could be as much as 10 to 20 centimeters, again, in those localized amounts. So exercise caution if you're driving in this area. More widespread event coming for Wednesday night into Thursday. More on that coming up.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan. We'll talk soon. Well, in New Brunswick, St. John City staff are pushing council to recommend a study be done to explore the costs and benefits of installing red light cameras. The province just recently passed legislation allowing municipalities to use the technology, but that has a cost, both in terms of the cameras and the crew needed to look after them. The CBC's Nipin Tarari has more.
In October, New Brunswick passed legislation allowing municipalities to use red light cameras and photo radar to reduce speeding and dangerous driving. St. John is looking to explore the potential costs and benefits of that technology.
The main goal here, again, is to identify the true benefits and true costs associated with implementing this technology.
Staff recently got unanimous approval from the city's Public Safety Committee to push City Council to recommend the Fundy Regional Service Commission to study the business case for the technology. It's another step in the city's approach to address community concerns about speeding, which O'Reilly says have tripled since 2020.
So in other areas that have implemented image capturing enforcement, they've seen, for example, a fairly significant reduction in speeding in their community, typically in the range of 8 to 12 kilometers an hour. In other communities have also seen a reduction in crashes within their communities as well, and an overall reduction in violations in terms of speeding. So again, this enforcement tool is just another measure to make our streets safer.
The Union of Municipalities has been pushing for the province to allow red light cameras for over a decade, but a month since the legislation passed, half of the province's major cities have no immediate plans for red light cameras.
I think the real issue is that the cost can be prohibitive. So before moving towards that, we want to be sure of how the technology works. And the real key here is what the revenue sharing looks like. So right now, what happens if there's a fine levied through the Motor Vehicle Act within a municipality, 100% of that fine goes to the province, even though the municipality is bearing costs through public safety, such as police officers, equipment, things of that nature. So that would be the same situation with the red light cameras. So municipalities are asking for those fines to actually be returned to the municipalities.
In October, the city's mayor, Donna Reardon, sent a letter to the province asking for at least half of motor vehicle fine revenue to be shared with St. John. Tim O'Reilly says this could potentially offset costs attached to red light cameras and also fund other traffic calming measures. The province's Justice and Public Safety Department says it responded to the letter and says it has no plans to divert fine revenues from funding provincial programs to municipal ones. The recommendation would need council approval before moving forward.
Salad kits distributed here in Atlantic Canada are being recalled due to potential salmonella contamination. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency recalled Taylor Farms' sweet kale chopped kit on Monday, warning the salad bags may be contaminated with salmonella. Consumers are advised not to eat, use, sell, serve, or distribute the product. The affected salad is sold in 340-gram bags and has a best before date of up to and including December 6th. The CFIA says it is conducting an investigation which could lead to additional product recalls. No illnesses related to the product have been reported so far. Well, it's definitely not the kind of news you want to hear if you prefer real Christmas trees, but new research from the University of New Brunswick shows balsam firs are at risk of being harmed by climate change.
The fir trees, which make up 20% of the trees in the province, are experiencing die-off due to high temperatures and periods of drought. The CBC's Danielle McReady has more.
While artificial Christmas trees are a popular choice during the holidays, many people still come to a place like this to pick out a real balsam fir tree for their homes. But a new study from the University of New Brunswick found climate change could harm these iconic trees.
In the spring of 2018, citizens across New Brunswick started noticing that May, like red-looking trees all on the highways and whatnot. And these dead balsam fir trees, they really stood out. They tended to be like individuals or small clusters of trees. But they were bright red, and so they were standing, all their foliage was intact, but it was very bright red and very noticeable. And so then the question became, well, what's causing this? We found the data to measure this, to see if this was the case. And we attempted to correlate that climate data with where these dead balsam fir trees were occurring. And in fact, the two things lined up very well. Like where the mortality took place was highly correlated with the previous year's warming and drought conditions. So then that led us to the conclusion that, climate is obviously a driver of this mortality.
A New Brunswick without the balsam fir tree would be devastating to the economy, the ecosystem, and to the holiday spirit.
20% of the trees that we have are balsam fir. Over a quarter of our wood supply is from balsam fir. And we export about 2 million balsam fir trees out of the region each year as Christmas trees, so it's an important tree.
But one Christmas tree farmer says nature always finds a way to thrive.
Right. And you can see, these little seedlings. This would probably have been in the ground for about a year or two. And you can see that it looks nice and healthy. It's got a nice leader. And it should, it takes 8 to 12 years to grow a tree. Anything can happen to that tree between now and then. But this is a good start. So once they get about that high, I have to worry less about water because their root systems, although they're shallow, they get deep enough to be able to, withstand any small droughts in the summertime.
Jerry Redmond has been growing trees here for years, and while he's always watching climate trends, he says the balsam is resilient.
They have a beautiful scent. I don't think they have to change that, and grow well in our environment. But in New Brunswick, balsam fir is indigenous to the province. It's been here since probably time began, and mixed with a spruce. So these are species that have been well adapted to the climate, the weather patterns that have happened over the last several hundred years. The research may show that there is, some significant things that are coming down the line. The only really thing that I would, keep alert of is if we do start to see some, significant die-off, then, there's a lot of genetic work being done on different aspects of balsam fir trees. I'm confident that Mother Nature has created, a tree species that is resilient, and that will adapt, like, many species of animals and plants adapt to the conditions that they're in, right?
Here's a peek at beautiful Chester Basin. We've got Ryan up next with this full weather forecast. See you in a few.
All right, that dip in the temperature had lots of people scraping the windshields this morning.
It was definitely noticeable.
Yeah, and I think it's just been a kind of a shock to the system, given it was warmer than normal in November. We didn't really see a lot of, certainly no cold like this, and now we're just head first into the pool. Here we go.
Here we are.
Yeah. And,
whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not. And more windshield scraping tomorrow for sure. Have a look at the temperatures for the month of November. You can see we were widespread above normal, 1 degree above normal for most, to 2 degrees to even 3 degrees in northern New Brunswick, where it was the warmest November on record. And again, welcome to our friends joining us in New Brunswick tonight for this program. And you can see across the Maritimes, again, another month we're near to below average precipitation, especially across southwestern parts of New Brunswick and southwestern Nova Scotia. Just a couple of exceptions there where we saw above average precipitation for the month of November. Okay, so snowfall outlook as we move through tonight and into tomorrow. I'm going to show this one more time. The onshore flurries tonight into tomorrow morning for western Nova Scotia, pushing down towards the Halifax area, but it's the northeast here, Antigonish into Inverness, Victoria counties. We are looking at the onshore squalls here, and those localized snow squalls could add up locally in some pockets to 10 to 20 centimeters. Don't get too fixated on the exact location here, as this, again, these squalls could be a little bit, could move just a little bit. And that's the nature of those snow squalls already starting to develop here with those onshore, as you can see, coming in across Inverness County. And there is a snow squall watch in effect here for the northeast. Now, as we back things out, we are looking at this is our next system rolling into the Great Lakes with a mix of snow and rain for us, all snow for them. Tonight, temperatures dropping into the minus 11 to minus 16 range across New Brunswick, minus 5 to minus 10 for most of Nova Scotia. Couple of cooler pockets here in the north and east. And let's run you through the timeline. There are those squalls being picked up by the model here for the northeast into Cape Breton. A few onshore flurries for the west. Yarmouth into the Shelburne area, could even see a few flurries into tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow afternoon, really calming down for most. The onshore flurries and squalls coming to an end here across Cape Breton throughout the afternoon. But dangerous, tricky travel conditions from basically the tip of Cape Breton right down to Port Hawkesbury, back into Antigonish, and then across into Pictou County tomorrow. So a heads up on that. We'll see the flurry chances for Halifax, but overall, those primarily in the morning, then becoming a mix of sun and cloud, and looking at a similar story in the west as those flurries will wrap up. New Brunswick looks fantastic tomorrow, minus 4 to minus 5 in the north, minus 1 to minus 4 in the south, and then that mess for Thursday. Snow will track in Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Note the temperatures by Thursday afternoon really turning mild here with those southerly winds. And so this is what we're most concerned about, is the Thursday morning commute is going to be snowy for New Brunswick and a bit slick and slushy in spots for Nova Scotia, especially inland, higher terrain areas, Cobequid Pass, and those are going to be the best chances to see some accumulation. We will change to rain in the afternoon for southern New Brunswick and even up towards the Miramichi area. And of course, it's all rain for Nova Scotia for Thursday afternoon. We will change back to flurries on the backside of this system. So again, mainly inland, higher terrain areas that could see a trace to maybe a centimeter or 2. Exception would be the Cobequid Pass, where we could see as much as 5, but those amounts more like 5 to 10 to as much as 10 to 20 are going to be set for New Brunswick. And the winds will be gusty with this one as well, gusting 60, 70, even 80 kilometers per hour for the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia, generally gusts 40 to 50 for New Brunswick. And you can see the cold air wrapping in on the other side of this system Friday and into the weekend. It is really looking quite chilly on the other side of this low before temperatures do look set to rebound for next week. Pretty chilly weekend shaping up for Nova Scotia as well on the other side of this system. Maybe a few flakes on Sunday, but again, temperatures bumping up into next week. What's your forecast to now, Tom and Amy?
We knew it was coming, right?
Kind of bone chilling.
It is December after all. Okay, Ryan, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, we will speak to a Halifax professor about the latest council decision around designated encampments. HRM Council voted to keep a list of possible sites for future homeless encampments. Mayor Andy Fillmore had campaigned on not opening any new sites, but today Council rejected his motion to dump the list. Jeff Crabineau is with the Dalhousie School of Social Work. Sir, the mayor did not get his way today. His motion was voted down. What do you make of this attempt to rescind the CAO's authority to open more of these designated sites?
I'm not sure how much we can make out of this. I heard it was quite a close call as well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of encampments. I think pretty much everyone believes that, you know, these are very, very band-aid approaches, if they're even approaches. We definitely need, you know, more, you know, focused styles of housing and safe spaces for people to live. So, you know, the fact that at least we have the encampment angle as possibly, you noted that earlier, as even like a first aid kit kind of for, you know, when there really is nothing available outside of that, then at least we know we still have that kind of on the table.
Yeah. I mean, the mayor has said that the end goal here is to phase out the encampments entirely, because the longer people live there, the more the drain is on their mental and physical health. But do it as more supportive and permanent housing solutions come on stream. So how is the city doing in that regard, in your opinion?
Well, you know, I think we always have to contextualize this, that we've had, 35 years of disinvestment in any type of, very thoughtful housing strategy around social, affordable housing mechanism. So we haven't invested. Then comes a pandemic. Then comes high rents and high inflation. So we really are in a perfect storm around being able to meet the needs of more than just folks that are living rough or living, in the homeless sector. Just a lot of other folks are also really, really struggling now just with survival. So how we're doing, I mean, I think there's a lot of very good initiatives out there. We have increased amounts of supportive housing, affordable housing structures, but just not enough after 35 odd years of disinvestment. So it's going to take quite a while. And we have increased folks that are kind of suffering kind of right now. So it's much more visible, and it's going to take some time to really kind of provide adequate kind of, sanctuary for everyone.
And as far as the shelters go, the mayor said today that there is space in the shelters. Would you agree with that?
So the most kind of traditional larger shelters that we know of, like, that have been around for years, are always full. There's no movement in there. Yes, the kind of newer sites that kind of have been, have been kind of set up for extreme weather, or for the kind of to work with folks that are experiencing housing shortages in the encampments. There is space here and there available, but we also have to understand that there's going to be a population that will not kind of be served in the proper ways in spaces like that, and people just won't go there. So I think we really need, this is a good time to be thinking about providing supports that are a bit more innovative and creative, that will allow for folks that could kind of feel safe, that as vis-a-vis how they feel safe in encampments right now.
And as far as those encampments go, two of the designated locations, Cogswell Park and Geary Street Green Space, are now, we're told, at capacity or over capacity. What kind of challenges is that causing?
Well, so, I mean, it's a good question. It's hard to answer because, I mean, again, encampments aren't safe, dignified spaces to begin with. However, I think what the municipality has been trying to do over the past year or two is to at least carve out some mechanisms like numbers, being able to provide drinking water, sanitation, just to make things a bit more livable and a bit more protected. So when those mechanisms kind of fail, so now we have overcrowding, yeah, it can be more problematic, right? I mean, people live in encampments. Some of them are really experiencing some deep trauma. And there's mental health and addiction dynamics. And then just the fact that, every day you're getting up from a tent. Some folks are working, some folks are trying to figure out other ways to survive. You come back at night, you go back to your tent. It's extremely frustrating. It's not a healthy way to live. And that kind of, causes some, increased tensions. And then there's, of course, tensions with folks, in the community around these encampments, which is, also deeply understandable. So, the idea that at least there can be initiatives to kind of spread out the encampment so people feel a little bit safer is always a good thing.
Okay, and just before I let you go, as we all know, the weather's getting colder out there. How much better prepared is the city to help the homeless this year?
Well, we know we have, bit more initiatives like tiny homes and pallet shelters, which are very, very significant as kind of a step above kind of a living rough. But we don't have enough of them. So we need that stock. I would love to see like encampments kind of being taken away as an option because there's more affordable and dignified places to live. Are we better equipped this year? I think a little bit we are. I think we have a deeper understanding of kind of why folks may or may not want to kind of get into the shelter world. And I think we have more of those options like pallet houses and tiny home initiatives that at least will take some of the folks that were living in encampments last year.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jeff Crabineau, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up, tariff threats. Opposition leaders meet with Justin Trudeau in Ottawa to discuss Canada-U.S. relations.
Tens of thousands of civilians are returning to their homes or what's left of them in southern Lebanon. Welcome back. There was an unusual event on Parliament Hill today. The Prime Minister called the meeting with all the opposition leaders and everyone showed up.
The topic dealing with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and his threatened tariffs. The CBC's Kate McKenna has the details.
Today, in a rare move,
why'd you agree to take this meeting?
Why not?
Opposition leaders met with the Prime Minister.
And putting our interests first.
Talking about how to deal with the President-elect of the United States and his threat of a blanket 25% import tax on all Canadian goods entering the U.S.
We discussed the possibility of unfair and unjustified American tariffs, and I made the point that these kinds of actions, were they ever to go ahead, would be damaging to the United States just as they would be to Canada.
I want to see an all-hands-on-deck approach to make sure that we are fighting to protect Canadian interests.
Last week, Trump vowed to slap Canada and Mexico with tariffs unless they stopped the flow of migrants and fentanyl across the borders.
We're trying to fight the Trump administration, which doesn't exist yet. We've got till January 20th to try to use every contact we have with contacts in the United States, people going into that administration. Don't put 25% tariffs on Canada.
It was a closed-door meeting, but a senior official says opposition leaders were asked to promote Canada to American contacts. They were also told not to negotiate against Canada in public by saying the border isn't secure.
We were reminded, please, do not say things that aren't true. Don't play into Trump's narrative.
For at least one opposition leader, that message didn't take.
Right now, we're going into this problem in a state of weakness. The Prime Minister has broken our immigration system, broken our bank, broken our borders. We need to fix what he broke to put Canada first.
The Public Safety Minister says new border measures are coming, but won't say exactly what or when.
We will have announcements to make in the coming weeks, recognizing that January 20th is obviously an important moment.
Dominic LeBlanc also brushed off comments from Trump at Mar-a-Lago last Friday, when Trump reportedly said Canada could become the 51st American state.
But the fact that there's a warm, cordial relationship between the two leaders and the president is able to joke like that, for us was a positive thing.
The Prime Minister's office is trying hard to get all political leaders on board. Last week there was a meeting with the premiers trying to convince them that a united front is the best approach. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Dozens of protesters occupied the entrance of a government office building in Ottawa this morning. They are calling for an arms embargo against Israel. The group says it is made up of Jewish, Canadians, and Palestinian supporters. They took over the steps leading to the main floor of the Confederation building, which houses MPs' offices. They said they wouldn't stop anyone from entering, but wanted to make sure MPs heard their demands. The group says it wants the Canadian government, quote, to admit its role in arming Israel and stop hiding Canada's complicity in the war in Gaza. Police and parliamentary security took about an hour to clear the protesters onto the sidewalk outside.
Meanwhile, Israel is warning of widening its strikes over Lebanon if the shaky, week-old ceasefire is violated by Hezbollah militants. But the threat of escalation hasn't stopped thousands of people who had fled the violence from returning home. Margaret Evans reports from southern Lebanon.
This is Nabatea. It is one of the hardest hit cities in southern Lebanon by the Israeli bombing campaign. You have only to look around to see just how devastating that campaign has been. The ceasefire last week has meant that people have been able to come back to the city for the first time. Most of the residents here fled during the fighting, too dangerous to stay. They're coming back today to see what they might be able to salvage. And for some people, they have found homes intact. Many have found nothing left at all. We met a young man today who actually grew up, if I can just ask David to turn around to show you, this pile of rubble is where he grew up. That was his family home. He was here with his father to see what they could salvage. Obviously, there's nothing left. They told me that they plan to rebuild. They know it will take years. They have no idea who will pay for it. The World Bank has estimated that it will cost Lebanon $12 billion to rebuild the entire country. Lebanon was on the brink of economic collapse before the war. Many people say there isn't a proper government. If you look at a city like Nabatea, the mayor here and many council members or emergency workers were actually killed in an airstrike. So difficult to see how people are going to be able to pick up the pieces, but they are. We've seen lots of people out sweeping out their shops, even putting glass windows into the shops. And what's interesting about that is they're doing that even though they're worried that the ceasefire here might not hold. They say the best thing they can do is hope that it will and try to continue to pick up the pieces, rebuild their lives, and hope that things get better. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Nabatea.
A night of chaos and confusion in South Korea appears to have ended peacefully. It started when the South Korean president suddenly declared martial law. Hundreds of South Koreans gathered outside the cordoned-off Parliament building to protest the declaration, while inside, military forces were trying to take control of the National Assembly. They left after lawmakers voted unanimously to lift the martial law order, which led the country's president to eventually rescind it. He had initially accused his political rivals of holding the parliamentary process hostage, calling them pro-North Korea sympathizers. Today's events were the most serious challenge to South Korea's democracy since the 1980s.
Hearings are underway in the largest ever case presented to the International Court of Justice. Officials from nearly 100 countries are pushing the top UN court for an opinion on what countries are obligated to do about climate change. Crystal Gamansing has the latest.
Global Affairs Canada legal advisor Louis Martin-Homais was the one to present Canada's position. The ICJ was asked by the UN for an advisory opinion on legal obligations states have to fight climate change and the consequences for states contributing to global warming. Now, the opinion is not legally binding, but it would be influential in climate-based litigation around the world. The Canadian position focused on the nearly universally accepted Paris Climate Agreement. Homais pointed out that it has mechanisms in place which are agreed to deal with states not meeting legal obligations through the Compliance Committee. And it was the Paris Climate Agreement that he used to say countries shouldn't be held responsible for actions related to climate change before signing on to the agreement, because it is the baseline.
Under the principle of state responsibility, a state cannot be liable for something that was not a violation of international law at the time of the action. Consequently, any action that a state took prior to becoming a party to the Convention or the Paris Agreement could not be counted against it as a breach of international law in the context of climate change.
It was the small nation of Vanuatu that spearheaded the draft UN resolution back in 2022 that started this entire process. A decision is not expected until 2025. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The Ontario government has launched a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign in the U.S., touting the province as a long-standing friend and ally of America. It comes in the wake of the recent threat by President-elect Donald Trump to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. Lorinda Redekop has the details.
Stable and secure when the world around us isn't.
A soothing voice and stunning scenery here and in the U.S., some old-timey shots, and a stat the Ford government likes to repeat, that Ontario is the top trading partner for 17 U.S. states.
Our long-standing economic partnership keeps millions of Americans working. In a changing world, it's time to bring jobs back home and build together.
The Premier's office says the ads will run where, as it says, we know our audience is. Fox News prime time, NFL football games, and at Washington airports over the holidays. One marketing expert noticed one word that's not there.
Tariff. So we're dancing around the issue in a way. It feels like some kind of economic development ad that would run in normal times.
He also wonders what happened to the idea of Team Canada, saying many Americans know Canada, but not individual provinces.
It's not aggressive. It's a classic advocacy almost hopey-dopey, speak to Americans and their wallets, which is that tariffs will hurt them, probably more than they will hurt us.
The ad will also air during the Super Bowl. Though not one of those coveted TV spots, it'll just be for those streaming the big game on the Fox Sports app. And they'll expand the ad campaign in January to include Washington billboards and transit shelters. The government hasn't specified the cost other than tens of millions of dollars.
It's expensive, right? Like, I would question, if there aren't more economical ways to address this. As I've said before, I think the Premier should be on the phone with every single governor and talking about our mutual reliance on each other. Things like that, actions like that are just as important, if not more.
The Premier has previously met with governors. The Economic Development Minister is headed to Washington next week to impress on politicians the long-term relationship and importance of this province to their country.
And for generations more, we'll still be here, right by your side.
Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Several investigations are underway into the death of a mixed martial arts fighter in Alberta. He died following a charity event last month. Now, there are questions about the organizer and whether the amateur fighters were properly trained. The CBC's Sam Sampson has that story.
This would be Trokon Dosha's last fight. After winning this amateur mixed martial arts event near Edmonton, the 33-year-old was carried out of the octagon. He died shortly after in hospital, leaving behind a pregnant wife and 2 children.
You play hockey, you play soccer, you play football, you don't play fighting.
Canadian MMA champ and coach Ryan Ford declined an offer to coach the novice fighters, saying it was all wrong from the start. The organization behind the event offered amateurs the chance to compete for a charity of their choice, as long as they train for 8 weeks first.
If it was train these guys for 6 months, they're here, Monday to Friday, hey, that's something that you can look at, but 6 weeks or 8 weeks, 2 times a week, sorry, that's not cutting it.
The organizer, Ultra MMA, is an extension of UK-based company Ultra Events Limited.
The 8 weeks of training is like a screening process.
Since 2017, 3 other fighters died after their amateur boxing events in the UK. After a coroner's inquest into one of those deaths, Ultra Events noted in court documents improved safety standards, like ensuring fighters are more evenly matched and requiring medical staff to supply them with a safety plan before the event starts. The company would not answer our questions about this event's safety protocols. Just weeks before Dosha's death, Alberta's government received safety recommendations related to another death. In 2017, Tim Haig died of a brain hemorrhage from a boxing match. It called for Alberta to switch from municipal oversight to a province-wide regulator for combat sports like other provinces.
We would be closer to our ultimate goal is to have one national standard with everybody having the same medical form.
RCMP and the province are investigating what happened to Dosha with no word yet on cause of death, leaving the combat sports community waiting for answers. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, this promises to be an emotional night for hockey fans in Calgary. The hometown Flames are hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. The game is being seen as a tribute to the player affectionately known as Johnny Hockey.
Johnny Gaudreau, who died earlier this year, played with Calgary for 9 seasons before moving on to Columbus. The CBC's Ted Henley has more.
The tributes are ramping up for Johnny Gaudreau. Gaudreau's father, Guy, is an honorary coach for the Flames, ahead of Calgary's first home game against Columbus, Gaudreau's last hockey club, before his passing. Johnny and his brother Matthew were killed in August of this year. They were hit by a suspected drunk driver while cycling in New Jersey. Sean Monahan played 8 seasons with Gaudreau in Calgary and signed with Columbus this season in hopes of being reunited on the ice with his friend.
We had so many great memories here together. A lot of years, a lot of big wins, big nights. We had a lot of fun playing together. I don't think I've ever met someone who doesn't like Johnny. He's funny, outgoing, shy at the same time, and very giving. Just a humble superstar. I mean, he didn't want any attention. I think that's something that a lot of people really respect. You could go to the mall and you're probably going to see Gaudreau jerseys or shirts and people wearing it. So he had a huge influence on this city, a huge influence in the league, and I mean, impacted many people's lives.
For a lot of people in the seats here at the Dome, it will be emotional. The tribute will be moving for them. Yes, Johnny Gaudreau did many amazing things on the ice here, but off the ice in the city, he was incredibly active in the community, giving so much of his time to many different charities. The entire Gaudreau family is in Calgary to take in the tributes. This is the first of half a dozen benches to be placed inside arenas throughout Calgary as a gift to minor hockey players. The 27 sticks used to build this are from the large memorial on the steps of the Saddle Dome.
We're so proud that they were part of Calgary for so long, and the whole family, and they brought so much to the city. Johnny especially, of course, brought so much excitement and energy to the whole city and to the Saddle Dome every night, and his parents were, like someone said, rock stars here in the city as well.
Ted Henley, CBC News, Calgary.
All right, well, Ryan said the inbox is filling up with beautiful pictures of Nova Scotia. I bet you we have a good one tonight.
I bet, although it's colder, so maybe folks stayed inside, or
right? It's almost as though you had a heads up on the picture that's coming, for sure. And last night we talked about those flurries overnight into this morning. It's just a little dusting in the Halifax area, in my backyard anyway. But there was more in the valley where those were expected to be a little bit more. And how about this? This was the
very
scene.
Winter wonderland.
Yeah.
In Berwick. Thank you to Elaine for this.
Quite a bit of snow there.
They did. Look at the railing there.
Definitely some nice, she said, a nice Christmas feel there this morning.
Did she shovel today, do you think?
I wonder. To me, it's still drive over it season, but thanks to Elaine for sharing. Certainly the walkways and the stairs, so you don't want those to get too slick. Have a look at the outlook for Wednesday, and again, some light accumulation possible again tonight in Berwick and in the Valley, more so towards Pictou, Antigonish, and Inverness counties. That's where those snow squall watches are in effect, and that's where we'll see the onshore flurries and snow squalls tonight and into Wednesday, even into the afternoon before things wrap up there. There's the rain snow outlook for Wednesday night into Thursday, and by the time we get to Friday morning, we're looking at mostly rain along the Atlantic coastline. Can't rule out a few flakes, but I think the greatest chance for some accumulation for Nova Scotia is going to be inland, higher terrain areas on Thursday morning. For that commute, we'll have to keep an eye on things getting a little slick and slushy in spots, but primarily this is a New Brunswick snow event yet again. As we time things out, there is, again, that onshore flurry action and snow squall activity for the northeast. Those flurries wrapping up for western and central areas, and here comes that snow. And again, it's that light dusting on the leading edge of this, which could turn things slick, and then that eventual change to rain. Could see 50 millimeters of rain from this one, and some gusty winds, especially along the Atlantic coastline into Cape Breton, where gusts could top maybe 90 kilometers an hour.
All right, be ready for that. Okay, thanks, Ryan. Well, a new era of air travel began today in Canada.
Air Canada customers flying from Vancouver will now be able to board their plane using facial recognition. Starting today, passengers on most domestic flights can upload an image of their face on the airline's app.
They can then get on the plane without presenting any form of identification. Air Canada is the first Canadian airline to use the software.
Hope that helps the lineups. That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.